Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is gonna be my March TBR. There are quite a lot of books on my TBR, so let's just get right in. I have one buddy read and one read along in March, so let's start with those. The first one is The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. This has been around for quite some time. I think it was released in 2014, so almost 10 years. And my book club here where I live, we decided on reading this in March. I'm really happy about it. This seems to have everything that I love. There is a multiverse, there is a secret library that travels to these other dimensions to steal their stories and bring them back to the library in order to publish books with these stories. There is the main character who's a spy who goes into these worlds in order to gain access to these stories, but when she goes to one of the Londons, which is a very different kind of London from ours, there is kind of a chaotic energy, there are supernatural beings, and there is one book that she really wants to get, but it's missing. Someone else has already stolen it, so she's trying to find the book, find out what's happening and what else there might be happening behind the scenes of this kind of London, and if it has anything to do with her own world as well. The second book that I'm buddy reading is one that I've heard nothing but amazing reviews. Everybody seems to love it. Everybody's like, you have to read this. This is the hype right now. And that book is The Will of the Many by James Islington. This seems to be about an academy of sorts in a republic that has very strict rules and where everybody's strength, everybody's focus, everybody's will has to be part of this bigger republic. So everybody kind of has to serve the greater good. And the main character is infiltrating this academy by telling them that he's an orphan, that he is a part of this society, that he wants to contribute, but in reality he really has another plan. He's there to solve a murder, he's there to find out what's happening, he's there to blow it up from within. It sounds powerful, it sounds very secretive, but also very action-packed. So I'm really happy that I found someone to buddy read this with, because I think we're gonna have so much to talk about with this one. And we're gonna start right in the beginning of March, so I'm really happy to start this one. The next book that I have is one that I've had for a while. I've had this for years at this point, and that is Fate of the Fallen by Kelly Cade. This is an ARC that I received when I went to ALA in 2019. Shame on me, I never got around to reading this, but the blurb pulled me in and I knew I wanted to read this, and it says, what if Frodo got assassinated by Sauron and Sam had to finish the quest? Oh my god, am I right? This is basically the story of the golden boy, Matthias, who is loved by everyone, and when he finds out that he's the chosen one, he's supposed to save the world, of course he is going and he wants to save the world. He wants to be the one, the chosen one. He always wanted to go out into the world and just have an adventure. Of course, he doesn't want to go alone, so he takes his best friend with him, and that best friend doesn't really want to go. He is a homebody, he just wants to stay in his little village. So he doesn't really want to go out and have an adventure, like, no thank you. But of course he goes because his best friend is going, and apparently he is turning out to be the one that actually has to save the day, and I can't wait. I have been rereading The Lord of the Rings over the last couple of months, and I'm in such a epic fantasy mood, and to see this kind of twist I think is very unique in a book, so I can't wait to see what the author did with this. I've heard mixed things about this, which is why I haven't really picked it back up, but now is the day. Now is the month to do this. Next we have the most recent addition to my library, to my TBR, and that is So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. This I got for my birthday. This was a present from my sister, so thank you so much, Anna. And I can't wait to get into this story. This sounds so amazing. This is about a war that has been fought. Like with the Fate of the Fallen, we have a kind of twist to this kind of epic story that we all know and love. So we have this girl who had the power of the gods and defeated the big enemy, the big villain, who in this story are dragon riders. So we already start when everything is done. There is a peace summit and she is still brimming with power. She doesn't have anywhere to put this power, and now she's just kind of the face of the whole revolution, of the rebellion, and she is going to this peace summit in order to, she doesn't really know what, she just has to go there and be part of this whole peace summit. So when she gets there, something happens that nobody really saw coming. Her older sister bonds with an enemy dragon, which, I mean, I would love, but in this case it's very chaotic, wasn't supposed to happen, and of course the gods who are on the side of this protagonist want this bond to be cut. They want this bond destroyed, and the only way to do that is to kill the sister. So what is this main character supposed to do? I mean, she has her country to think about, she has her gods to think about, but of course there's family bonds. There are so many ways this can go, and I'm here for it. Next up is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is compared to Death on the Nile and The Mummy, which seems to be like the perfect read for me. So this is about a young woman who is growing up in 19th century Buenos Aires, and she is always left behind by her parents. They go out, they have their adventures, but she never really gets to go along. Until one day she learns that her parents went missing, presumed dead, I believe, and the only thing that she knows is the last port that they went to, which is Cairo, and she has an ancient ring that her father sent her for safekeeping, which turns out to have magical abilities when she reaches Cairo. It says it's a lush historical fantasy filled with adventure, rivals to lovers, romance, and a dangerous race against time. I'm here for it. Next up, we're back in reality. We're back with contemporary literary fiction, but that doesn't mean it's any less adventurous or thrilling. So the next book that I want to read is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I've been meaning to get to this for quite some time. This is a copy that I borrowed from my friend, and I'm pretty sure she wants it back, so I really should get to this. This is the story of two authors. One who is Asian American, who is the rising star in the publishing world, and everybody's looking at her to be this new great novelist. Sadly, the protagonist of the story is not that person. She's a white author, and she feels like the publishing industry isn't really looking for the next white author to bring the next best thing. She's very bitter about this, so when she witnesses the death of the Asian American author, whose name is Athena Liu, when June witnesses her death, she steals Athena's manuscript and publishes it as her own. So many things to unpack in this alone, and I heard glowing reviews of this one, and I really want to dive into this one as soon as March starts. Next, I have two murder mysteries that I want to read. The first one is These Deadly Prophecies by Andrea Tang, which is a fantastical murder mystery, which I love. This is about a young magician's assistant who has to solve the murder of her boss in order to not get blamed for it. And not only that, her boss was a fortune teller, and he had a premonition about his very brutal demise, and it came true. So really excited to see where this one goes, and this kind of twist on the usual murder mystery whodunit. The next murder mystery that I want to read is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. This is about another fortune teller. But in this story, the fortune teller isn't the one who's dying. She tells a young woman that she will die by murder. And her whole life, this young woman is telling everybody that she will be killed, that she will be murdered. And because she's, of course, very suspicious of everybody, she just keeps collecting everyone's secrets and everyone's skeletons in the closets. So when she actually dies, when she's very old, her great niece is told to come to this small town where her great aunt lived and solve this murder. The problem is, because she was so suspicious of everybody, there are loads of suspects, and it's kind of hard to find out who wasn't able and willing to kill this old woman. Sounds really fun, so I'm really happy to have this one on my March TBR. And then I have 4 books that have been out for quite a while, and I'm now getting around to reading these, partly because I got the audiobooks from Libby, so thank you, Libby. But let's start with the first one, and that is A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This follows Prince Cadu, who is kind of, well, the synopsis kind of makes him seem a bit clumsy, a bit unprincely, if that's a word. It's not, but let's go with it. There's a huge altercation when he meets an ambassador, and his sister, who's the queen, is kind of embarrassed, and he needs to kind of save face and do something in order to reclaim her trust and the trust of his kingdom. So he goes and tries to solve a break-in. Not sure like where the connection is. Like, in order to save face, he has to like become a detective. Who knows? I am gonna be intrigued to see how that works. And he is helped by his new bodyguard, who is wary about being the babysitter of this prince. But that of course turns around because it's their love story as well, I think. And of course it's not only this break-in, it happens to be a big plot against the queendom, and he has to solve it. I love this kind of unlikely hero that has to go and save the world. Always love those. So really happy to finally get around to reading this. Next up, we have the first book in a series that I think had its final book come out in February. That's The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. This is the retelling of Sleeping Beauty, when the prince is actually two girls who are vastly different. One is a bookish treasure hunter and one is an adventurer. And then there is Sleeping Beauty, of course, but in this case Sleeping Beauty is actually the prince, who's kind of waiting around for someone to awaken him with true love's kiss. And when these two girls stumble upon him in an ancient ruin, they're kind of stuck with his ghost until the curse is lifted from his kingdom. It sounds really great. It sounds very snarky, very like banterish. I'm here for it. Next up, I have Anne Leakey's The Raven Tower. This sounds really fun. This is about a country that has been prospering because of their god, their raven god, who is giving his powers to the chosen king. While this king is on the throne and is giving a blood tithe to this god, everything's great. But right now, nothing's going great. The power is kind of waning, and it seems that an imposter is sitting on the throne. And we follow the story of a warrior who is coming to town with the actual heir to the throne, or like the person who is chosen by this god to sit on the throne. Seems to be also very political because all the other kingdoms around them want to have this power that this god is giving them, and they themselves have gods as well on their sides. Sounds really, really great. And then we have Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is a very beautiful special edition that I got. I was never a fan of the original cover. I'm gonna put it over this one. It wasn't really that pretty, so I was kind of hearing great things about the series, but I was never tempted to get the book because I wasn't really happy with the cover. Yes, beautiful covers, they just grab you and just make you want to read the book, let's be honest. So when this beautiful edition came out, I snatched it up, and I'm really happy to get around to this one. This is also kind of an original young adult fantasy story that has been around for a bit. And this is about a young woman who is, when the story starts, in the dungeons. She's kind of resigned that she will die down there, that she will never see the light of day again, but she gets the opportunity to become the taste tester for, is it the king? I think it's the king. And that kind of puts her in a very vulnerable spot because she could die literally every time she tastes something, but it also gives her kind of power and a possibility to escape this whole debacle. But she also has to take poison every day in order for them to be sure that she will not run away and be kept on a leash. In this one, there are secret powers that are awoken, and there is again a plot against the kingdom. Sounds like a great start to a series. I have two more books that I want to talk about before I go and spin my wheel. And that's first of all an arc that I got that is released at the end of the month, and that is The Emperor and the Endless Palace by Justinian Huang. And this seems to be a story that is told in 3 timelines, and we always have 2 men whose paths cross, and they have different objectives every time they meet, but they always fall in love. And it seems that they are lovers who always find each other in whatever world and whatever time they are reborn. I'm really intrigued to see how all the storylines are interwoven and what the actual plot is, and if I actually can follow it, because it sounds very intricate and maybe a bit tricky. We started with an academy and I want to end this with an academy, and that is a lunar academy. So a magical school that has to do with the lunar phases, and that is Curious Tides by Pascal Loussel. This story follows a young woman who goes to the school, and last summer something happened. A couple of students went onto a cliff into a cave and only one survived. Something happened, a lot of them died, and she's the only survivor. Since then, her powers are kind of all over the place, and she thinks they might turn into something darker. Nobody's allowed to know this, so she turns to the only person who might be able to help, because he himself is part of this darker lunar magic group, and he's also the brother of one of the girls who died, and the girl was her best friend. So they're all interwoven, they all know each other, and everybody still looks at her differently because of everything that happened. So there's a lot going on with darker magic, friendship groups, and maybe also a secret about the whole school. In December I read a bit of it and I was really intrigued, and I can't wait to get back to it. So I really want to make this happen in March. And like with my last TBR, I will spin my wheel again. If you haven't seen my last TBR, I put together a wheel of other booktubers' favorite books that I already own, that are on my physical TBR or on my digital TBR, and I'm gonna spin one per month, and I'm gonna prioritize reading that book. Last month I got Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. As of this moment, I still haven't continued with this one. I still have a couple of days, and I'm planning to take this with me when I go on vacation for a couple of days at the end of the month. So this should get read. So let's see what the next month will bring me. Let me just screen record this and we'll be on our way. Here we go. Okay, so we got Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. Let me just grab it real quick. Okay, this I'm not mad about. This is an ARC copy that I got again in 2019, and I started this last year. I got 74 pages into this and put it down. Not really sure why, but I do remember that I enjoyed this. This has now a different cover. They changed it, and it took me a while before I saw these faces, but Dragon Academy, yes please. I've heard nothing but great things about this series as a whole, and this first book in the series. This takes place in a country where there was a brutal revolution, and the people in power who were dragon riders were deposed and executed, and all of their family members were killed. And now new people are in power, and the Dragon Academy is being reopened. There are new riders who are supposed to be from lowercase, so everybody kind of is allowed to be a dragon rider now if they can like go through the course and find a dragon to ride. What nobody knows is that one of the elite, one of the aristocrats of the old ways, is still in this academy, that he is kind of keeping his identity a secret, and nobody really knows that he is now still becoming a dragon rider. Another person that we follow is his best friend Annie, and she is secretly, I think, in love with him, and I don't think she knows either that he's not who he says he is. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna go back into the story, enjoy it, and see what happens. I know that in the beginning there are trials because the old dragon riders are all dead, so they need a new elite in the hierarchy of the dragon riders, and the main characters are all up for the position of like the lead dragon rider. Really glad this came up, and I'm really happy to have not one but 2 books with dragons to read in this month. So these are all the books that I'm planning to read during the month of March. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these, and tell me what your reading plans are for the coming month. And I hope to see you all very soon in my next video. And until then, I hope you have all the great reads.